Run Hard Nation, we are back again this week talking about the blocks. You may say, what in the world is the blocks? Well, the blocks is the show, TV show. Yeah, check it out. Run Hard made it on TV, sort of. We'll explain it a little bit more in depth. But last summer, we had the opportunity to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma for an incredible experience, an experience of growth, just to try to help Run Hard get better and also hear from other experts, I guess, within the small business, startup, entrepreneur community. So today we have a special guest, Scott Devore, coming on, who is not just a contestant. He was not a contestant, so I can't say just a contestant. He was actually one of the judges on the show. So has a wealth of knowledge, has a lot of experience, and just a lot of cool stories. So, and also in full transparency, this is the second time we've talked to Scott. So the first time we went through it, we interviewed him. He had some, I mean, just mic drop moments of just knowledge. But what happened was, I mean, I hate to say this while she's in the room,
Don't you even do
but
it.
Stacy didn't press record.
That's a
So we
lie.
get all the way
That's a
through it,
lie.
and we have no proof that we recorded anything. So
That's
make
actually not
sure.
true because I actually do have proof because when I saw you didn't do it, I filmed it on my phone. So
Yeah,
actually, there is proof.
yeah. So anyway, we're back.
Welcome, Scott.
I'll let the listeners be the judge. They know who to believe, Stacy. So
We have a judge. We'll let Scott decide.
yeah,
Oh man, don't put me on the spot right off the top.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't remember whose fault it was, so I'm gonna be Switzerland on this one.
Heard that. Scott, thanks again for coming on, giving us your time, talking to us today, talking to all the families involved with our program. So, how about introduce who you are, where you currently live, and what you do a little bit before we dive right into it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good to see you again, Jesse and Stacy. We had a great time last summer in Tulsa. It was blazing hot, almost as hot as what it is here in Jacksonville, where I've been running my company for the last 10 years. So I own a construction real estate development company. And before starting Devore Capital Contracting, I was a corporate person. I graduated college a long time ago, 2001, business management degree, worked for four different billion-dollar companies and construction. I I went into aerospace for a bit. I worked in healthcare as well. And over 15 years, I felt like I had just a ton of experience working for a lot of different industries, a lot of different departments. And with all this exposure I had, I thought, and throughout this 15-year corporate run, I was doing a lot of side hustles, just very entrepreneurial my whole life. And kind of started when I was a teenager. I used to DJ when I was in my teenage years, and that's kind of how I made my side money, and I continued that through college. So side hustles continued through my corporate career, and I was making a lot of money in corporate, but my whole focus was to have my own company. And so 10 years ago in 2015, actually coming up on the anniversary, July 10th will be the anniversary of my 10 years of being a corporate dropout. I decided to go all in on myself. I started what was just really a kind of a freelance consulting company. Then over 10 years, I built it into kind of a traditional brick and mortar construction company. So I'm a licensed general contractor. I'm a licensed roofing contractor, licensed real estate broker. And we do all types of services from roofing to ground up development to real estate brokering, you name it. And I've got about 25 people who work for me. And, we're just scaling this company, hopefully with, um, we have a big goal of scaling to $100 million by the end of the decade. It's a big goal, but the whole team is bought into it, and so that's kind of my introduction of who I am as an entrepreneur.
Man, you said a lot of good things in kind of your little opening introduction. I want to touch on a few of those things. One of them, obviously, you mentioned you work industry wide, like a lot of different industries and everything. And in our program, we try to teach kids to build certain life values that we think builds a platform for success in life. So we're working with kids 8 years old all the way through 12, 13 years old, just to begin to build that platform of success that will hopefully pay off later in life. So, the different industries that you've worked in, have you seen like a common denominator? Because you've experienced success, like you mentioned, in a number of different industries, but is there a common denominator that you can identify that goes across all of them?
Man, that's a tough question because I'm thinking what's coming is actually not common denominator, like what makes them all different. But I think what makes them all different is kind of what makes them all alike. And I'll try to explain what that means. So I work for Fortune 500 companies. I work for privately owned. I work for big, companies that do 50 billion a year, some that started out as kind of a smaller company. One in particular was about $200 million, which isn't a small company. And by the time I left over 7 years, they 10x to like 2 billion. So
Holy
I got to
cow.
see a lot of like growth of a company that was already kind of, already large, but became extremely large. And what that did for me was, and I know the owners, and not that I was really close with them, but it just showed me like just average people, and not that there was anything, obviously very successful to scale a company to where they did, but to me they were just like average people, and I like, if someone could do that, could take this company from nothing to like billions of dollars, like that gave me belief in myself that I could do that. So what made them all the same is really a lot of them were just very um, kind of, and this is kind of unique where they, uh, I guess they kind of champion a lot of entrepreneurial type of values, meaning even though you're not the owner of it, but they actually had a culture where they made you act like you were the CEO. So whether you were in finance or if you're in project management or your whatever production, they kind of had this culture that, hey, you're the CEO of this. And I thought that was a good takeaway
Sure.
because I've actually incorporated a lot of that. I have a core value in my company called entrepreneurship, where we kind of take it to the next level where we don't just say, hey, you're like the CEO of it, but we actually reward you with, equity and, profit sharing in that regard. So you actually truly get something out
Sure.
of it as we have this massive goal to scale the company to nine figures.
I mean, that's incredible. So your personal goal now, 100 million in the next decade. So are we talking 2030? Are we like
Well,
in the
yeah,
5 year
that
plan?
the call is 2030, which
Okay.
would be massive. We got a long ways to go,
Yeah.
but things can happen, pretty quickly. So whether we get halfway there or just 25% of the way there, I mean, that's just the focus. So we're grinding.
Hey, I love that you said that because whether it's in business or whether it's trying to finish a 5K, you grind, you work for it, you set those goals. So, last question before we kind of dive into the blocks a little bit and we get your input there. But like, what would you say as an entrepreneur? Because you said 2015, you're like, I'm a corporate dropout, I'm betting on myself. What does growth take for you to reach that goal? What does growth take? Because it's like that's what we just want to make kids aware of, like this is what it's going to take to grow. So
Yeah.
what can we let them expect, or what can we tell them to expect based on your experience?
Yeah. Man, I could probably answer that with a quote I heard a couple years ago. A lady who I follow online named Cody Sanchez. I'm not sure you're familiar with her, but she says something that just kind of blew my mind. She said, um, unless you're unless you're trying to be the best, you won't even be good. And when I heard
Mm.
that, like even when I say it, I'm actually getting chills saying it to
Yeah.
myself. It just does something to me.
Hey, say it again. Say it one more time.
Yeah. Unless you're trying to be the best, you won't even be good.
Wow.
So if your standard is the best, you
Yeah.
may never be the best. But if that's
Right.
not your standard, you're not even gonna, you won't even be good. So if your benchmark is to be okay or decent, man, you're gonna get, because like not that many people become Michael Jordan and reach the
Right.
pinnacle, become the greatest of all time, or
Right.
Kobe. I'm not even gonna throw LeBron out there, but he's a pretty good player, but he's definitely not the GOAT.
Yeah.
But I see Stacy smiling. But if you, so that made me check myself when I heard that because, you know, I run a company, I have success. We've done millions of dollars. I built a good team. I got a nice office overlooking the river, downtown St. John's River, downtown Jacksonville. But man, because I remember when I became this corporate dropout 15 years ago, and there's a lot of stories with that. But I remember before I made that move, um, we were doing like a kind of a team building thing, and we were like journaling. And journaling wasn't something that I was new to, but I remember they were just asking these questions, like something about what do you want to be in the future? And this was me at the kind of the height of my corporate career. And I wrote because I'm living in LA, I'm grinding, working 80 hours a week, and I just hated it. I loved living in LA. And I remember writing down to the answer to that question that I wanted to be the greatest entrepreneur of all time.
Hmm.
And um, when that was kind of the fuel, there's a lot of things that happened. So then when I branched out 10 years ago, became this corporate dropout, I was, not that I was killing it day one, but then, after I made enough money to replace my job income or my old corporate income, I had to like really check myself. Am I just like, taking it easy, or am I really putting in the work to be the best, to be the greatest entrepreneur of all time that I said I wanted to be? So that quote, unless you're trying to be the best, you won't even be good. That's the standard that I kind of filter everything
Wow.
through for myself.
Yeah. What a
And so you're
great quote.
currently still doing that? Like, is that something that you repeat currently? Like, not just from when you started, but like, is that something, and are you really intentional about doing that? Like, how does that actually look in daily life for you?
Um, Man, I think it's just me when I'm having my time to myself and I'm reflecting because like, uh entrepreneurs, they're either like vision oriented or they're kind of operations driver oriented. And I'm more of a vision guy.
Mhm.
But I've done a lot of operations. I've been a driver, but that's not really where I want to be. I love doing new things. Like I can come up with ideas all the time. Like everything I look at, I'm
Sound
drinking
familiar,
tea,
Stacy?
and I'm like, how can I make money off this foam cup in my hand? Like that's just the way my brain works.
Yeah.
Um, so where I do that test about being the best, that's really more of my kind of my personal reflection when I am kind of just, hey, I'm leading my team, I'm leading my company, even though um, I feel like my role really now is mentoring and coaching my team to
Hmm.
help them level up and get to where they need to be. But I have to still demonstrate that, I'm out here pushing and leading from the front because no one's gonna, it's like the John Maxwell law number one of the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. Law number one is the law of the lid. Like no one's going to outperform the leadership lid that you have. So I have to
Right.
keep raising the bar for
Right.
myself to lead my team.
That's good.
Man, that's great. So, Scott, I don't know if you know this or not or remember this, but this time last year, we may have mentioned it too. This time last year, we were in Oklahoma. So, Stacy has gone into the vault and she has found video of the day that we were in your group that you were the judge. So she
Okay.
may have we may have to show a clip of that in a minute.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
everybody listening, Stacy and I went on as I guess contestant, business, whatever, because there was a lot of learning, but there was like a competitive side of the show as well. But kind of equal parts there. Scott was a judge. So we've explained a little bit in other episodes about our experience as a contestant in a business. Scott, you go into this thing as a judge. Now, explain to people, were you also a business that was part of the show before? Were you just coming in first time as a judge? And if so, what were those feelings like? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Were you kind of unknown, not knowing what to expect? Take everybody through that.
Yeah, so my first experience was only as a judge. I had um no other exposure to the blocks before. And I think I just saw a casting notice for a judge on the TV show, and I don't know where the casting notice came from. And my kids have done acting when I lived in LA, so getting casting notices is something I get all the time. And I probably had a filter for any type of casting notice for anything business or entrepreneur related. So I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is interesting because this is right up my alley. I love entrepreneurship. I love mentoring. I love coaching. So I went through the process, probably similar to a contestant
Sure.
of getting vetted, had to do these interviews, submit a video, and everything. And I made it through the process. And really, it wasn't until after I got selected that I started to. And so I was actually watching, clips of the show to get familiar because I wanted to, be knowledgeable when I was going through this interview process. But as soon as I got the notice that I got casted, then I just started binge watching every single season. And I'm like watching I'm like, man, I love what Wes was doing. I love just the format because man, as an entrepreneur, I actually would love to create something myself similar to blocks. Not saying that I will one day, but man, it's 100% who I am. And
Sure.
so when I got, I binge watched it, and then when it was time to, go out to Tulsa and film the whole thing, I took that extremely serious because I I knew what everyone was bringing, the sacrifices financially, time, learning and competing, the competition. So as a judge, I wanted to make sure I was also giving, as much value or even more to every single contestant. So we were given like every morning or every night, they give us a list of everyone's going to be on our pod. I watched all the videos on everybody. I read all their backgrounds. I listened to their casting videos. Then when it was time to break up into the pods, like then I sat through the same course and class that Wes was teaching as well because I wanted to hear it, from his, way he's teaching it, and then sitting in, the pods with everybody, and then just like trying to give value to every single person as they were then pitching and presenting. So I did not take it lightly just because, man, this is
Sure.
real life. People, this is everything. Some people like their business is everything. And to me, business isn't everything, but it's a big part of who I am. And so I just wanted to make sure I was giving like the way everyone else was giving.
So we had, man, that's great because as a business that participated in this, the feedback we got from coaches, I think I'd speak for Stacy on this, but Stacy, you feel free to chime in. Like we left the blocks with getting probably more from that interview slash one-on-one part of the coach interaction than we did from the big sessions, So hearing you say how much work and everything that you put into it, just, I mean, probably reaffirms my thought of just the reason why we got so much out of that. Because how it was broken down for those listening is we went to a big session in the morning, then we had lunch, we were given an assignment. That assignment was on the screen for about a minute. We had to go to another separate part of the hotel. We were in this pod with about 10 other businesses. And that's where we would have interacted with Scott. And on day 3, we did. So what we're going to show you now is a short little clip. And Scott, I know we were so good. I know you haven't forgotten how it went down that day, but I will say it was not one of my finer moments as a public speaker. So, Stacy, do you happen to? Oh, so we're going to show you a video clip, and then Stacy, unbeknownst to me, was like taking pictures of me just at random times. So we're going to show you the short clip. Please, no longer than 10 seconds, Stacy. We don't need to put people through more misery than that. And then the picture she took at me after I finished. So just kind of what to look for. Watch to the very end and just watch my expression. It explains everything. So Stacy, go ahead with that.
Okay, I think it's like a 15-second clip.
Oh Lord, that's even
Right,
longer
here
than
we
I
go.
wanted. So here we go.
Pay all of our invoices. Now what they have to do is email an invoice to our accountant, and then everything's paid for through bill.com. Jesse, I'm
He,
gonna
So as you can
he just
see,
holds his head down.
so as you
Like,
can see, I finished and then my head and everything just drops. And then after I get back to
so
my seat,
yeah, well, before the I don't know, infamous disaster, shall we say, This is Jesse. You can't really see the notebook, but he's just studying his notes. Like we have talked, we have prepped, we are ready. We felt really confident prior the days prior to, especially day two, we felt really good because we had learned, like we were learning a little bit more every day. And so by day three, we were like gonna nail it. And so he and I had gone through and I was the note taker. I was there for my brain.
I took
Um,
a few notes.
um, and so that was Jesse prepping. Then he gets up there, falls apart, and then he comes and he just sits down, and this is the look on his face. He's just like completely defeated. He had no idea until just before this. He had no idea I even had these pictures. So I've been sitting on this for a year, and he was like, "You have that disaster tape?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, you were not mentally ready to see what happened in that room that day."
I,
Hey man, I think you're just being hard on yourself. Man, you did great. You did great. I
Yeah,
mean,
I remember. So the coach session, you have 3 minutes, I think it was, to give kind of like your elevator pitch of your answer of the question that day. And so that's what we just watched. And then, yeah, about a 15-minute one-on-one with the coach, which again, that's what I referenced as being very valuable. And I remember I
Mhm.
sat down in that chair and Scott goes, "You did really good." In my head, I'm like, "Bro, Scott, you don't have to lie. Like you can hurt my feelings. It's okay." But that was very helpful in that day because I'd say not to say that this because you're on here, but you were Stacy and I's probably favorite, if not up there with the top one of just the feedback and everything. It may be because my heart was more receptive because it was broken after my public disaster, but yeah, it was good. So
It was
I
very
appreciate
practical information that you gave to us.
right.
And so, like, you listened and then you gave us information that we could then bring back home and put into real world knowledge, which for us was very helpful because we weren't necessarily coming there. I mean, it would have it's nice to be able to get lots of information and come home and be a winner, not a winner. We don't know how it ends yet, but also just to be able to sit in the room with people who have done this. um, you just were really good at giving us the information that we needed for our particular station. And so we really appreciated that. And we talked about that later in the evening when we would debrief. It was just really helpful information. So all the work that you put into it, I feel like the folks that got to sit in your pod, they benefited from that. So I know we really appreciated that.
oh man, I really appreciate that.
and
Yeah.
and from a coach or from a participant to a coach, like what you told us probably worked because the last 2 seasons of Run Hard since leaving the blocks, we've had growth that we've never had before. So, hey, I know you like to hear that as a coach. So I just wanted to make sure you heard that. So good job.
Yeah. Oh man, I appreciate that. And that's amazing. And I just remember when season 16, when it broke, you were the first one featured, and I was so excited to see you. And it was a great season. And I know that they're probably on season 22 or now. So just to be part of the legacy of the blocks was amazing. And then just to hear the growth. I mean, just really, if you think about, you can measure success at a lot. I use a lot of dollars, to measure just because I have a finance kind of background and everything. But when you think about what you built, Jesse and Stacy, and with Run Hard and the impact, the community that you built, the impact on the kids, and just the involvement and just the sense of community around it. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Right.
So it's just amazing. What from where you guys were, and obviously I've only known you for a year now, to where it is, and just to hear about the growth in the last couple of years, that's amazing. So kudos to you guys.
I appreciate that. And hey, if you ever cross paths with somebody in Jacksonville, it's like, man, my kid has so much energy. They need to do something to burn this energy. That we need something like this at their school. Be like, I got the guy for you. So feel free to pass your information along. Last question I want to ask you before we let you go is so you've experienced, we've been through this success, many different industries. You have a lot of life experience. Um, however, if you could go back and tell your 8, 9, 10-year-old self just one thing that you know now, but you wish you knew then, is there one thing you can go back and tell your 8, 9, 10-year-old self? If so, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say very simply to just to take your shots. Just go for it. No regrets. And now that I'm in my late 40s, I'm 46. I took a shot 10 years ago at 36 when I went all in. I was at the height of corporate. I'm now married 21 years, but back then, 10 years ago, married 11 years, had young kids. My kids are both in high school now, multiple mortgages, you name it, I had all this. And I just I didn't want to look back at 80 knowing that this is what I've always wanted to do. I
Yeah.
wanted to just be an entrepreneur full time and just on, something that I've created. And um so my advice is to take your shots, but then I'm also going to give two pieces of advice is even if you did not take your shots when you're younger, it is still not too late to take your shots.
Mm.
Even when you're 46, even
Yeah.
when you see all these memes about like Colonel Sanders. He was like 54 when he launched KFC, like all these older people. And so the takeaway from that is that everyone is on a different path. Everyone's timing is different. Some people like are Mark Zuckerberg and they become billionaires when they're, 15 months old.
Yeah.
Some are
Yeah.
Colonel Sanders and they're 54 years old. Everyone has a different path. So take your shot. Doesn't matter whether however old you are now or however young you are, just go for it. And so that's my advice.
I
So what's
love
the
it.
Wayne Gretzky phrase? What's his quote? Wayne Gretzky's quote.
You miss
You
all
missed
the shots you
100%.
don't, 100%,
Yeah,
100% of the shots you don't take.
you got it. You
I
got
love
it.
it. I love it. Hey Scott, you dropped some like tweetable and hashtag worthy sayings in this in this discussion, man. Good job. So
Are
if
we tweeting
somebody,
still? We're
what's
not
that?
tweeting. We're not tweeting anymore, are we?
It's not even called tweeting, is
No,
it? Is
it's
it
X
Xing?
now. Come
Is
on,
it
Jesse.
But you still
okay?
tweet though. But you
Yeah.
don't X, you tweet. Even though it's
Yeah.
called X, you still tweet.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. So if people wanted to follow you, kind of your story, your success, or maybe an advice you give on any public platforms, like how can they follow you or how can they see
Yeah.
those things?
Yeah, so you can find me at Scott Free Devore on all social media platforms. That's kind of where I talk entrepreneurship, and then I also talk my other passion, which is Christian hip hop music. So a lot of my content's there, but then from just kind of construction real estate development, it's my primary company, Devore Capital. So that's at Devore Capital on all social media platforms.
And what's your podcast? You have a podcast too, right?
Yeah, it's called Free Factor.
Free Factor.
Yeah, so Free Factor. So my nickname is DJ Scott Free.
Yep.
So Free Factor was kind of the genesis of the podcast when I named it. So that podcast, I interview entrepreneurs. We have a Free Factor remix where I interview primarily Christian hip hop guys, and we just talk about their story of overcoming and the journey to become successful and just like try to give value to upcoming entrepreneurs, upcoming, musicians.
Love that.
I love it. Keep that thing going, man. Yeah, make sure to tune into those platforms. I mean, if you got as much or even just a little bit as much as I got out of this conversation today, make sure you follow Scott on all those platforms. He's a wealth of knowledge, and you can even follow him in his pursuit to reach his goal of 100 million by 2030. So, Scott, we'll be cheering you on. You were the judge, so I don't have much advice to give you from that end of it. And plus, you saw me present that day, so best thing I can do is just be like, "All right, Scott, I got you, man. Keep going. I'll cheer you on, man." So, hey, I appreciate the wisdom and knowledge that you're giving our audience and everything that you shared with us today and the time you've given us, man. So, appreciate you. Keep doing your thing, and everybody out there listening, always remember, run hard. See ya.